Hello, welcome back to the channel, everyone that's tuned in. American Ultra Stock. Here we are, Braden and I, bringing to you guys a bit of a new segment. We'll see how you guys react to this one, if people enjoy this segment or not. Hot Take Thursdays, where we typically focus on one area of U.S. soccer or world soccer in general. It's not just limited to the USMNT niche. But today it will be, as you see on Braden's background, we're doing Hot Take Thursdays on the USYNT, the United States youth national teams, and the players who aren't pro yet. Can be anything pertaining to that. A bit of a more free-flowing discussion. Braden, what's your first take that may be a little bit shocking in regards to youth players or youth history in this country?
Yeah, so I'm just going to kick it off with our current U16 team that just got called up. And I think that when it's all said and done, this current U16 setup will be the best ever U.S. youth national team group that we've ever produced, because the amount of talented players that we have is honestly wild. You start off in the goalkeepers with Owen Pratt, who at just 14 years of age was training with the senior USMNT. I mean, maybe it was due to the area that they were in, but it's still impressive. Like, they still invited the kid to go and train with Matt Turner, Ethan Horvath, Drake Callender, and it really shows his ability and his potential that he was able to share that experience with some of our top goalkeepers currently. And the defense is a little weak, as always. I mean, US never has any good defenders, and that's going to be a major issue. But there is Manu Romero in the U15s that I think will be able to make the step up if he does choose to play for us. One of the best left-back prospects we've seen in a while, at least for Americans, playing for Real Madrid. Goal and assist machine, even from the defense. I think he's going to be a very, very big part of our future if he does choose us over Spain and Uruguay. And then moving on to the midfield, we have the best prospect, in my opinion, we've ever seen from the US, Calvin Sullivan. This kid is just completely unreal. He has world-class talent. Some people are even saying he's the best for his age in the world, not just in America. It's high praise, but I think he has that kind of potential. We shouldn't get carried away with kids this young, but honestly, if he lives up to his potential, he's going to be very special. And that world-class talent that we were talking about, I think he could be one of them. We've also got players like Lyndon Emanalo, the English dual national who plays for Chelsea's youth academy, that accepted a call-up that I think has a very, very bright future. And then obviously in the forwards, Julian Hall already made his MLS debut at the age of 15 for New York Red Bulls. He looks like an immense talent, and with the Polish passport, he'll be able to go to Europe as soon as next year, which is huge because honestly, American coaches are not great. So the fact that Calvin Sullivan, Julian Hall, these kind of players have the dual nationality to be able to train in Europe, and some of the other dual nationals we have as well, is huge for our development. I mean, there's others as well that I could mention. Even players like Nimfasha Berchimas, who's at the U17 World Cup, he's still eligible for this U16 team. He could play in the next U17 World Cup if he wanted to, which is crazy because I think he was probably the best player that we had there. So just looking at this group as a whole, I mean, it looks super talented. And I know we've had some very memorable teams in the past, specifically at the U20 World Cup, the last two editions of that. But I think this U16 team is very, very special and definitely has the potential to surpass that.
That's a really, really nice comment. I do think that if we look at the floor of the talent, maybe it's similar. There are some players that are, well, it's hard to group up a bunch of guys that are all going to come through. But if you look at the ceiling, maybe we never had that many players. The ceiling averaged so high for a youth national team. That is a really good take. Mine is a little bit, I feel like more people can join in this conversation for this one. In my opinion, the United States never had a world-class talent, in my opinion, ever. By the way, I put Freddie Adu there, RIP, but he didn't die. It was just a joke. But I don't think we ever had a world-class talent. People can tell me that Gio's world-class. People can tell me that other players were world-class. Potential prospects, I don't think so. I don't think they ever showed any signs of being potentially world-class, in my opinion, at least. And the closest we got to that, and the closest we will get for the meantime, for the foreseeable future, 5 years, let's say, it's Christian Pulisic. And I think he's the truly first good, well-established, at some point, maybe again, but definitely during lockdown, in between the 50, 30 best players in the world. I think that's fair to say. That's the closest that we ever had to a player being world-class. World-class is, in my opinion, maintaining a certain level where you can get into any team in the world or be in contention to be a starter in any team in the world for at least a season, 2 seasons, let's say. And I don't think we ever had that. Next hot take, Braden, or what do you think about that one?
Yeah, I agree. Honestly, I think Freddie Adu, honestly, I know you mentioned him for a brief moment. I think he had the chance to be an elite prospect. I mean, we saw how good he was at such a young age, but clearly there was some mentality problems and other stuff going on behind the scenes. It's unfortunate because honestly, I think if Freddie Adu had turned out him with this current team in his age, he would have been around 30 or so. It would have been so fun to watch, honestly. Just bringing a little bit of veteran experience, which we don't really have in the team right now. But yeah, I think we will produce world-class talents in the future, and I think it's coming sooner than we might think. But so far, I don't think so. So going into that, my next hot take is going to be what's in my background, which is the Pan American team that we had very recently, this November. Basically a pre-Olympic tournament. Obviously, we didn't use our Olympic team for it, but it's basically the Olympics of the Americas. And we brought a very, very weak roster. So my first hot take is that not a single player from this roster that we brought will ever get a USMNT cap. And okay, this is excluding Camp Cupcake, because we all know Camp Cupcake gives some caps to very undeserving players. I think there's a couple on here that would definitely be good enough for Camp Cupcake. I think the goalkeeper, Antonio Carrera, in particular, looked pretty good. But with the current goalkeeper depth that we have coming up through the youth, and obviously with Matt Turner there as well, I don't think he's ever going to have a chance in the main team. A couple other players, Rodrigo Neri, the striker from Atletico Madrid, he looks all right. He was definitely one of the bright spots in the team, but with players like Balogun, Pepe, Sargent, Haji right there right now, and then with players like Kiro Figueroa coming up through the youth, I don't think there's ever going to be much of a chance for him with the main team. Who knows, though. And then the other main one who I thought was pretty good was Teddy Pietro from DC United. But I think him and Carrera, they looked good, but they're just going to be MLS lifers. Maybe he'll get a good career with a Belgian team, something like that, but I don't think he'll ever be a top 5 league player. And I think it does kind of show the depth that we have, that we still made the semifinals of this tournament with probably a C team, maybe a D team for this age level, but it's not. I don't think it's an encouraging sign for any of these players, and I don't think any of them will ever crack the main team.
Wow, that is a bit of a negative tone to start with, but honestly, it's I don't think, to be fair, I see a lot of people saying that they did well, and I think they did well for who they are, but none of the countries really took their A team to this competition. But yeah, that's a bit of a hot take. I think that my next one may be a little harsh for some MLS fans, but in my opinion, MLS Next is a failure, and I'll expand into that and say that, in my opinion, it's so boring. But not only for the boring aspect, honestly, I'm just going to say that I don't think that we can, for the next 20 years, I can't imagine we truly producing through the rankings of the U.S. soccer pyramid, through MLS Next, a world-class talent. I don't think so. I feel like it's a lot more beneficial for a player to go through the Luna route, where they play in USL. I don't care. We mentioned this in the last group. Well, you mentioned it in the last video about, let's say, Grayson Tony playing against grown men in Regional Liga in the 4th division of Germany, equivalent of 4th, 5th, if you want to say it is the Bavarian state championship. But I would much rather watch our youngsters play against grown men in USL than just be playing against other kids in a closed format where there's no way for expansion. And I think that it is a failure, in my opinion. Not only I like that there's a chance for kids to play without playing, but let's be honest, where does MLS Next get their players from? They're not scouting there. The scouting is ridiculous. They're getting all from clubs. So in my opinion, it is a failure. It is part of the pyramid that I do think that ultimately, in terms of producing a world-class talent, is a failure. You can't really, it's hard to quantify a talent and say that this guy is going to be special. Every parent thinks their kid's special, which unless they have 4 legs, they're not. And I think that ultimately it does not enable us as a country to produce any world-class talent, in my opinion. That's why the best players that we'll have, Kevin Sullivan included, in my opinion, they will eventually, before 18 years old, they will reach such a good level, but it won't be in the US. He's probably going abroad, having trials, and that's what I mean. Without these experiences abroad, they won't be able to reach and fulfill their potential, because ultimately MLS Next, this path right here, is ridiculous. If you're good enough, you jump up that step, and that already tells everything, in my opinion. If you want to expand your opinion on that one and going through your next hot take, Braden.
Yeah, I have some similar opinions to that, but I disagree on the main thing. Because I think, first off, I think it's way too early to call it a failure. It's only been around for a couple of years. It's still developing, and U.S. Soccer Federation is doing, I think, all they can to make it better, and the clubs in general, making it free for players to play in MLS Next academies is a huge step. And just a bunch of stuff like that, improving the scouting. And I think we've seen opportunities for MLS Next players to make that next step. And while I do agree with you that ultimately players who stay there won't become at that world-class level or USMNT level, I think it's a good pathway for players to get a rise and get some scouting from European teams and eventually make the jump. Because I think from the start of MLS Next, we've had more Americans than ever have trials with European teams, signed to European academies, just through the exposure that they've gotten. One thing in particular, the GA Cup that they have every year, I think is huge, because they invite academies from all over the world to compete alongside the MLS academies. We've seen players such as Kobe Mainu from Manchester United, who's in the first team and playing very, very well for them at the age of 18. He played in Generation Adidas Cup a couple of years ago in the US. So it's proof that elite talents from all over the world can come here and they take the tournament seriously. And I think some MLS prospects from there have, as a result, been scouted and have trials in Europe. And maybe you could say it's due to just the golden generation that we're having and the talent pool as a result getting better. But I do think that MLS Next is a pretty key part of that. So I don't think it's a failure per se, but I do agree that anyone who stays here for an extended period of time probably won't reach that level. You have a response to that?
But yeah, no, I agree. Ultimately, I think that is a harsh thing to say it's a failure. But one thing that I'll say that really should be implemented, if that's the goal, and I agree with everything that you mentioned, is put an age cap on that. Why are some dudes that are 23 years old playing MLS Next? It takes away the whole purpose, in my opinion. And I think the fact that the USSF, we know they're tied with MLS, but it is so closed, it's such a closed system. There should be a sort of a US Youth Cup where there are MLS Next sides and USL, similar to Copa São Paulo in Brazil. Not to say that it is perfect, but just open it a little bit more. This closed system, it really holds us. But I agree. It's harsh to say. Thinking about it, those are good arguments for MLS Next. Now, your next hot take?
Yeah, I think the MLS Next Pro thing, some older players playing, that's the main flaw. But again, we're still seeing several good players, some young talents come through, such as, like I mentioned earlier, with the U16s, Julian Hall was a prominent player for the New York Red Bulls MLS Next Pro team. But getting into my final hot take of this video, and by the way, guys, let us know if you want a part 2 of this, because I think U.S. Youth National Team hot takes, there's so many that we could make. I mean, there's so many different age groups and players to talk about. I think it makes for a very interesting debate. So let us know if you want a part 2 of this or other topics for hot takes. Maybe we should do senior team ones next. But getting into my last one for this video, and it's kind of going off that MLS Next thing, being a failure, like you said, because I think that some of our most important youth players, you could argue maybe our most important ones, currently play for other countries. And we've seen this in the past with players like Balogun, Musa. I don't think Des played for the Netherlands, but players that were stealing from other countries, Christopher Loons, not stealing, but, scouting them, recruiting them, players who come up through other nations' youth teams and get better access to coaching and better competition as a result. Because let's face it, as good as some of our youth teams are, the competition in CONCACAF is nowhere near the level that we want our players to be playing against. I mean, you saw, for example, the U20 team in the summer of 2022, how easy it was for them to just breeze through the CONCACAF championship. And they ended up doing all right at the U20 World Cup, but I think if they had had access to play against better competition in the build-up to that, they would have done a little bit better. So, I mean, just to give a few examples, I already mentioned players like Manu Romero, who's playing for Real Madrid's academy. He plays for Uruguay's youth team. He plays for Spain's youth team. And luckily, he accepted a call up to ours just to, I think, feel us out a little bit. But he's definitely getting a lot better access to coaching in Spain than he would here. players like Alexander Staff, who's playing for Germany's U16s, I believe. He scores week in, week out for Eintracht Frankfurt's U19s. He's one of the best striker talents I've seen us had in a long, long time. I think he's up there with Figueroa, to be honest, with levels of talents. Got players like Fidel Barajas and Valentin Yotov, who were in the 2006, I don't remember what the website was, but the article that they make every year with the top 60 best talents in the world, that we had a couple players on. I think Cruz Medina and Diego Cochin were the ones, but Barajas and Yotov are both dual nationals that are representing other countries. Barajas with Mexico and Yotov with Bulgaria. That I think we deserve to do everything we can to get them, because I think they could make a huge impact on our men's national team in the future. Players like Tyler Miser and Cole Campbell, who are playing with Dortmund's youth team in the UEFA Youth League and for the U19s in general, playing for Germany and Iceland at youth level. I mean, I don't know how likely it is that we can get them, but we should do everything in our power to continue to recruit these dual nats, because the reality is, as it currently stands, like you mentioned, the MLS Next Pro coaching and the development there, it's definitely improved a lot in the past couple of years, but it's not at the level we want it to be. If we are truly to become a footballing powerhouse, like I believe we have the potential to, and like we've been building towards the past several years, basically since that 2017 loss to Trinidad and Tobago, we've been building something special. But I think we need to make the next step when it comes to development, and these players playing abroad for other youth national teams and with better academies in Europe, I think are a key part to that.
Yeah, that's the ground roots level. I mean, where you're tapping, I completely agree, and I'm actually shocked. I want to give a shout out to Fletcher from Swansea, because, well, he's not from Swansea. He's playing there. I'm shocked that he's only American. What? Only American? No other passport? How is that even possible? But yeah, shout out to him. He's been doing well. I completely agree. It is crucial. Maybe we can do a hot takes on dual nats. The whole topic of dual nats. I feel like that's such an interesting topic for the future. I'll bring on the hashtag need more rednecks, because I do think we need more rednecks in the national team. But anyways, not to bring in, just obviously just a joke. But the last one of mine, this one may sound ludicrous, ridiculous. In my opinion, I'm still torn if this is a good take or not. Obviously really controversial. I think that high school soccer, ever since I read when I played high school and club soccer, as a lot of people have, I'm sure. And when I saw the article that Eric Wijnaldum, one of our really good players that had a successful career abroad as well, wrote the article about the importance of high school soccer in the U.S. and how that should be shifted as the main focus instead of clubs. I don't think that that's necessarily the way that we should go about, because high school, well, you're limited to the calendar year, you're limited to so many things. But in a way, we often talk about the he is him mentality. That's something that could definitely bring more players with that mentality, because let's face it, the good players, they all play at club. They obviously want to be playing against the best players, but if you're geographically tied with a bunch of kids who don't know how to kick a ball, in a way that might force you to play a little bit better. And it's also one thing that's really nice about it, it's free. It's completely free, honestly. You need to buy your cleats, of course, and the coaching is very questionable, the pitch quality is very questionable, but in a lot of ways, it should be an open gate for the sport. And I think that public school soccer, not just high school, would be a really, really huge help. And I think that USSF should do something about it, honestly, because I see my little cousin, for example, he loves playing. He's playing with age groups ahead of him. But there's no way that he can play in his elementary school. There's no elementary school or middle school soccer, just high school. So who's going to get into that? Yeah, the pay-to-pick kids that have always been playing the sport. So, in my opinion, high school soccer in the U.S. is so underrated and so undervalued. That's my last take, because I don't ever see anyone talking about it. You have something to say, Brandon?
Yeah, I think the main problem with high school soccer, besides the obvious clubs and academies are taken more seriously, is the traditional American route, because I feel like all the good high school players feel obligated to then go on and play in college, which, don't get me wrong, I love college sports. I think some of the best atmospheres by far in the US, just for a sports landscape in general, come from colleges. I mean, you see how emotional fans get for college football and college basketball, and I think implementing that into college soccer would be beneficial as well, just for the culture of the game. But the reality is, it takes away too much time from these players' careers. I mean, you had players like Clint Dempsey, Jordan Morris coming out of college. Obviously, I'm not saying Jordan Morris is a top talent, but it wastes years, valuable years of their career, because you see abroad players in academies, they're getting first team chances at high level clubs at years that our players are wasting in college. And the traditional American route, well, it's good for some players and it's fine if you want to become like an MLS lifer, which there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, you're still making a career out of the sport. Props to anyone who does that. It's still very hard to do. But realistically, if you want to be at that next level, playing for the national team, playing for the best teams in the world, that route, it's not sustainable, to be honest. And I think that's the main problem with high school soccer. It's seen as the route to college, and academy is seen as the route to Europe, which I think is good, because I think that's how the rest of the world does it. I think we should adapt. We shouldn't try to make everything so Americanized. But I do agree. I think some of the rivalries and the passion in high school soccer and high school sports in general there's a lot more of that there built up, and especially in the rivalries with crosstown teams and local high schools than there is for academy teams, because there's not much of a rivalry there.
Yeah, I feel like at the entrance level for the sport, what is the gateway drug for soccer? There really isn't, unless the parents already like it. Really, I feel like in public schools, we are missing something uniquely American from building the sports culture for this sport. And let's be honest, the soccer, you mentioned the atmosphere. I agree that the college football has the best atmosphere, fan culture in this country. The college soccer is non-existent. College high school is non-existent. It's the worst. It's the worst one. I think that lacrosse probably has a better atmosphere at the college level than soccer, honestly. But any other takes, Brandon?
I do have a lot more takes, to be honest, on this topic and others, but I think we'll save it for other videos. Like I said earlier, let us know in the comments what other hot take videos and topics do you want to see us discuss, because I think we can get some very good debates on these type of things.
Yeah, I wish that Arjun was here, especially since we talked about youth players. It would have been nice. I don't know if some of you guys, some viewers may remember Arjun. Shout out to Arjun. Hope he's doing well in college. But thank you guys. Thank you for watching. Make sure to leave a like, subscribe, comment down below. What you thought about the video. If you disagree, let us know why. Leave some hate. Just participate. We would love to see some more people participating in the channel. Make sure to share with your friends, and we'll see you next time. Comment down below what the next hot takes topic should be. See you next time.